I'm going to present some of the evidence that anti-Palestinian voices are being platformed in newsrooms in really dangerous ways. I'm going to give 2 examples. So the first of them is the New York Times reporting on rape in Israel on October 7th. I'm not questioning the possibility that sexual violence took place. What I'm looking at is what counts as credible evidence and which voices are being platformed. This was a huge front page cover story, and one of the authors of this piece is somebody called Anat Schwartz. Anat was not a journalist prior to October 2023, prior to this cover story. According to multiple sources, she had no reporting experience. She was a filmmaker who had made a movie about Israel called The Promised Land. She also, according to this Wikipedia page, which has since been edited, used to work in intelligence for the Israeli military. Now, before editors greenlight pieces, they very often look at our social media to make sure that we are, in fact, neutral, unbiased sources of information. If they would have looked at Anat's social media, they would have seen that she had liked several anti-Palestinian tweets, including this one here, which called for Gaza to be turned into a slaughterhouse. In the days after this article came out, it was a huge, huge deal. So the New York Times podcast, The Daily, had planned on doing an episode about it, but they quietly shelved it. And the reason why they chose not to cover this reporting was in part because the family members of one of the key victims that was included in this article distanced themselves from it. So they said that actually the reporters had manipulated them and that there was no evidence that their family member had been raped. I should also mention, by the way, that another one of the authors on this, Adam Seller, is the 24-year-old nephew of Anat Schwartz. Sorry, it's really hard to hold the phone up. I should also mention, I guess, that just over a week ago, the UN found, quote, credible allegations that Palestinian women had been raped by Israeli soldiers, but the New York Times hasn't considered that worthy of being reported on. It's not just the New York Times, so I'll give one other example, which comes from the Wall Street Journal, right? So this was an article that appeared in the Wall Street Journal in February, and it found that apparently the clues were there all along, that members of a UN agency had links to the October 7th attacks, and one of the authors of this piece is somebody called Carrie Keller-Lynn. This is Carrie Keller-Lynn during her time in the IDF. This was an interview that she did where she talked about her friend Eliza, who literally created social media for the IDF. But again, Carrie is considered a neutral and impartial source to report on this. These unsubstantiated claims about links between the UN agency and October 7th were widely reported on. And as a result of those reports, funding to the agency was dramatically cut. So all of these countries either cut or suspended their funding to this agency with dramatic effect. This UN agency keeps people in Gaza alive. And this decision to cut money from the agency has accelerated the pace of Palestinian death. These institutions are willing to undermine their own credibility in order to put forth unsubstantiated claims from biased sources that serve to further the narrative of this Israeli government.